In today's reality, we inevitably encounter rude people in the subway, at work, in stores, and even on the street. Although they may not reach the level of the infamous Emperor Nero, who ordered the killing of his mother and wife, they still represent small tyrants seeking to control and subdue the world to their own views. Can there be a world without such people? Probably not in our lifetime. Thus, the question is how to deal with them without jeopardizing our peace of mind. Marcus Aurelius spoke about understanding the nature of those who go astray after experiencing beauty and goodness. Marcus, one of the last of the 5 good emperors, could have forbidden rude people from being around him, but he preferred to prepare for possible encounters each new day. The point was not to let these people catch him off guard, preventing potential outrage or shock. However, part of this exercise also involves taking a few seconds to try to understand and empathize with those behaving rudely. It is crucial to avoid immediate and unconscious reactions, assuming that they act selfishly. If we approach the situation with sufficient awareness, we can adopt an alternative perspective. Perhaps behind the rude driver is a woman who spent 3 sleepless nights caring for her husband dying of cancer. Or it could be a clerk who helped your wife with a bureaucratic issue yesterday. Maybe the father cutting you off in traffic is rushing to the hospital with an injured child. It all depends on how willing we are to look at the world and what we are ready to consider. Furthermore, we can try to consider that all the other people in the queue at the cashier are likely as tired and irritated as we are. Some of them may lead even more stressful and burdensome lives. Think about it when stuck in these lines today, whether at the cashier or the tax office. Reflect on it when someone does something that literally throws us off balance, and we feel the urge to retaliate with hostility. We have no idea what their reality is, what they have been through. Every medal has its reverse side. Don't forget this. Give people the benefit of the doubt. Now, let me share a short story about how a renowned basketball coach, George Rabeling, learned a valuable lesson in childhood about mastering knowledge or ignorance. He received this lesson from his grandmother, who once asked him, "George, why do slave owners hide their money in books?" He shrugged, and his grandmother laughed, explaining that they knew slaves would never discover it because it was illegal to teach them to read. Totalitarian regimes burning and banning books had the same reason. Knowledge is genuine power. Marcus Aurelius stated that it's entirely possible not to form any convictions about anything and rid the soul of anxieties because things by their nature don't participate in the formation of our judgments. William Shakespeare also expressed a similar sentiment, saying there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. I don't want you to get the impression that Stoicism simply accepts everything in life. Stoics weren't passive weaklings. They just knew how absurd the necessity for revenge or retaliation was. Seneca wrote, "Does anyone consider it normal to respond with an insult or bite a dog in return? When someone offends Cato, he pretends not to hear it, and Epictetus advocates self-irony in the face of criticism. Suppose you hear that someone is speaking ill of you. Consider whether his judgments are competent. For example, notice that if he knew you well enough, he would impute not those minor faults he talks about, but much more serious ones." Stoics recommend taking a pause after an insult, evaluating its worth. Certainly, if there are no particular reasons to be angered, suppose someone makes a sarcastic remark about the height of a person who is genuinely short. Seneca asks provocatively, "What's the point of listening to the obvious insult?" From what I've just said, one could conclude that Stoics, when it comes to insults, were absolute pacifists who never responded to retaliatory attacks and never sought to educate the rude. This is not accurate. Seneca wrote that there are cases when insults demand the most decisive actions in response. The danger of a playful or silent response lies in the fact that some interlocutors are too foolish to understand that Stoicism is demonstrating contempt. In such cases, a joke or ignorance can only embolden them, and they will literally bombard you. If you find yourself dealing with an endless stream of insults, the situation can be particularly awkward if the offender turns out to be someone's servant in antiquity or in our lives, someone subordinate, like a student or a child. Stoics explained how to behave with such people. In some cases, it is worth making a remark or educating the person who is bothering you or others. For instance, if a student insults a teacher in front of the entire class, it would be unwise to leave it unanswered. Hooligans and classmates might perceive the lack of reaction as weakness and unleash a storm of mockery on the teacher. Such behavior clearly disrupts order in the classroom and hinders the learning process. Marcus Aurelius faced numerous attacks, but he always reminded himself that the best revenge is not to be like the offender. This is something we should also remind ourselves of. We don't have to label everything indiscriminately. We don't need to turn fools into something significant, as he said. Remember that it's not the person who defends himself that offends. It's the opinion about it. So, every time someone irritates you, knowing what led you to irritation, remember that your opinion is at stake. Therefore, try, first of all, not to get carried away with your own perceptions. Marcus Aurelius said, "Remember the whole nature of the universe and what a tiny part of it you are, and how brief the allotted time, and what a small part of that small part you are. In the grand scheme of things, you participate in it in what a negligible fraction, and the time from which you are given only a brief and fleeting period, in the destiny as a whole, what an insignificant particle you are. We all become victims in the heat of the moment. Someone cuts us off on the highway, speaks rudely to us, or is just unpleasant to be around. In those moments, we become so irritated and emotional that it's difficult for us to recognize ourselves in the mirror. We become someone else, completely consumed by the belief that we have somehow been offended. In such situations, it is beneficial to scale down and take a bird's-eye view, as Marcus Aurelius wrote. This exercise involves looking down from the top of the mountain at everything that surrounds us: birth, death, divorces, cities, and deserts. Pierre Teilhard de Chardin mentioned that a perspective from above changes our evaluative judgments. Luxuries, power, war, worries, and everyday life seem trivial. To see how small we are in the grand scheme of things is just one part of this exercise. The second, more subtle aspect involves engaging in what the Stoics call sympathy or interdependence with all of humanity. Astronaut Edgar Mitchell was among the first people to truly experience this genuine bird's-eye view, and he remarked that while in space, he felt a profound sense of interconnectedness, the feeling that all humans are part of the same. Unlike astronauts, Stoics didn't risk decompression sickness, barotrauma, immune deficiency, positional discomfort, or any radiation exposure, but they envisioned this in their minds. It was a kind of meditation, viewing the world from a different perspective, from afar, or as part of a broader picture. It might distract us from our concerns and possibly make us realize that they shouldn't bother us at all. Marcus Aurelius detailed this process in his Meditations, akin to viewing from above, glimpsing countless masses of people, numerous religious rituals, ships sailing in all directions. Consider the lives lived by others before you, those that will be lived after you, and those living now, barbarian tribes. Ponder on how many people don't know your name, how quickly they will forget you, and how transient praise can swiftly turn into criticism. When we encounter a rude person, there is an irresistible desire to retaliate or put someone in their place. However, it's not us speaking, but our inflated sense of self-importance. Take a deep breath and look at it from above. You'll understand how foolish it is to waste your nerves on such trivial matters. Marcus Aurelius once stated that we already possess the strength necessary to lead a good life. This strength lies in being indifferent to things that are insignificant. While emotions can be powerful, most of us tend to succumb to them. However, the price we pay for lowering ourselves to the level of others is much higher than if we were to learn self-control. The core of Stoicism always revolves around controlling oneself rather than trying to control others. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, studied philosophy under a cynic named Crates Diogenes. Despite Zeno's dedication to philosophy, he was overly modest and concerned about others' opinions. To rid him of this flaw, Crates Diogenes devised an unconventional method. One day, he had Zeno carry a pot of lentil soup through the central street. When Crates saw that Zeno was trying to keep it inconspicuous, he smashed the pot with a stick. The soup spilled on Zeno's legs, and he started running. Crates shouted, "Why are you running, my little Phoenician? Nothing terrible has happened to you. You just got a little dirty." Seneca would say that it's evident that it's better to be rich than poor, tall than short, but it was indifferent to Stoics when fate practically decided it for them, because they were strong enough to handle whatever challenges fortuna threw their way. This understanding should always be present in our minds when dealing with people. Expecting everyone to treat us with respect inevitably leads to disappointment. Instead, we should prepare ourselves for reality. However, this is already covered in the next point. Accept that rude people are inevitable. Marcus Aurelius used to say, "In the morning, tell yourself, today I will have to deal with intrusive, ungrateful, arrogant, cunning, and envious people." It's amazing to think that even as an emperor, Marcus Aurelius constantly encountered rude and arrogant individuals. This is a crucial realization. Such people existed 2,000 years ago, and they surround us today. As Marcus wrote, we must ask ourselves, is it possible to have a world without shameful, foolish, malicious, or insensitive individuals? The answer is, of course, no, so don't ask for the impossible, as the emperor advised. There must be shameless people in the world. That person acting inappropriately in the store is just one of them. The same applies to those who lie, betray, and fail to meet our expectations. This is the reality we must acknowledge. There will always be unpleasant people. We must rise above responding to rudeness with indifference or empathy, considering how much pain someone must be in to cause harm to others. Consider their uncertainty and insecurity that leads them to belittle or offend those they don't even know. This mindset is what we should embrace. Everything else, like getting angry or resorting to violence, only makes the world worse. As Stoics, we are obliged to do the opposite. That concludes today's discussion. If you enjoyed the video, I strongly urge you to subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. It greatly helps in promoting the video and the channel. Goodbye until next time.